Canada was one of the founding members of NATO in 1949 and has supported the alliance politically ever since. It leads NATO's multinational battle group in Latvia, keeping troops there to deter Russia and defend the eastern flank. Canada is the 6th largest contributor to NATO's shared budgets, helping to keep the organization running financially. While it has been below NATO's 2% of GDP defense spending goal, it has promised to raise spending, aiming for 5% of GDP by 2035, with funds going toward both the military and infrastructure. Because of its geography, Canada is investing in bases, ports, and communications in the Arctic, an area NATO views as increasingly strategic. Canadian forces have also taken part in major NATO missions, including operations in Kosovo in 1999, Libya in 2011, and Afghanistan for many years. Through Operation Unifier, Canada has trained more than 22,000 Ukrainian soldiers, strengthening NATO partners against Russia. NATO leaders, including the Secretary General, have praised Canada for its leadership, especially for its responsibility in Latvia. Sweden joined NATO in March 2024 after being neutral for a long time. This gave the alliance a much stronger position in Northern Europe. It has already sent about 550 soldiers to NATO's battle group in Latvia and will also help lead forces in Finland. The Navy is built for the Baltic Sea, with modern ships and submarines that patrol difficult waters and keep undersea cables safe. Sweden also makes its own weapons like Gripen fighter jets and submarines, which adds useful technology and equipment to NATO. Military spending is already above the 2% target and has reached the highest level since the Cold War, with even more growth planned. Now that all the Nordic countries are in NATO, defense in the Arctic and Baltic is much stronger. The country is also putting effort into civil defense, protecting infrastructure, and preparing for threats like sabotage. Poland joined NATO in 1999, just a decade after leaving the Soviet bloc. Since then, it has completely transformed its army. Conscription was ended, old Soviet equipment was replaced with modern weapons, and its soldiers now train directly with NATO partners. Because it borders Russia and Belarus, Poland plays a huge role in defending NATO's eastern side. It not only hosts a NATO battle group on its own territory, but also sends troops to help guard Latvia and Romania. Poland is also one of NATO's biggest defense spenders when measured by percentage of GDP. It invests over 3.9% of its economy into defense, more than almost every other member, showing how seriously it views the Russian threat. With troops and spending, Poland is home to major NATO headquarters. The multinational corps Northeast in Szczecin and the Joint Force Training Center in Bydgoszcz are both based there, making the country an important command and training hub. Regular exercises with allies like the US, Germany, and the UK make sure that Polish forces can operate seamlessly alongside NATO partners, using the same systems and strategies. In short, Poland spends heavily on defense, trains constantly, hosts key NATO bases, and guards the eastern border, making it one of the alliance's most committed defenders. Spain joined NATO in the 1980s but didn't take part in the military side until 1999. Since then, it has been a reliable partner in Europe. Its fighter jets often fly with NATO to protect the skies over Eastern Europe and the Baltics. At sea, its navy helps patrol the Mediterranean and keeps important routes safe for trade and travel. The country is also valuable because of the bases it hosts. The big naval base at Rota near Gibraltar, shared with the US, is one of NATO's main hubs for ships, submarines, and missile defense. In Valencia, there is a NATO center that can quickly send out troops for war, peacekeeping, or even disaster help. It also works with France and Germany on building a new European fighter jet called FCAS, which will give NATO stronger technology in the future. Germany joined NATO in 1955, just 10 years after World War II, which was pretty controversial back then. Today, it's one of the alliance's key players in Europe. It hosts NATO's main air command at Ramstein, where all the air missions are planned, from guarding the Baltics to bigger operations. Because of its location, it's also like NATO's highway. Troops and tanks from the US and other allies move through here before heading east. For years, it was known for spending too little on defense, but after Russia invaded Ukraine, that changed fast. Now, it spends over 2% of of its economy on the military and is buying new tanks, planes, and missiles. It's also reopening factories to pump out artillery shells and weapons, not just for itself, but also for Ukraine and other NATO partners. For the first time since World War II, German troops are permanently stationed abroad. Around 5,000 are being sent to Lithuania, right on Russia's border. The army is also set to grow to over 260,000 soldiers, making it one of NATO's biggest forces in Europe. And with constant training alongside the US, UK, and Poland, it's ready to fight as part of a team. Italy's been in NATO since the very beginning in 1949 and has stayed important thanks to its position in the Mediterranean. Its jets often take part in Baltic air policing, helping guard Allied skies. On land, it hosts the Rapid Deployable Corps, a NATO HQ that can move fast in a crisis, and it runs a multinational division with 11 other allies. Though most of the troops are Italian, there's even a plan for a huge bridge between Sicily and the mainland. It's a civilian project, but also handy for NATO, since it would make moving troops and gear easier. After years of low spending, Italy is finally reaching the 2% NATO target and plans to slowly increase it further. It's also investing in new drones, missile systems, and other modern gear with help from EU funding. That's why NATO leaders often call it a reliable ally. It might not be best, but it plays a steady and important role. Turkey's been part of NATO since 1952, and because of where it's located, it's kind of a huge deal. It's right between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, so the alliance counts on it a lot. It's also got NATO's second biggest army after the US, which means serious numbers if things ever go bad. NATO's mainland HQ is actually in Izmir, so Turkey's the place where a lot of big ground operations get organized. Then there are the bases, in Incirlik and Konya. They're super important for air missions and moving supplies around. On top of that, Turkey's radars give NATO early warning if missiles are coming, and because it controls the straits between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, it basically decides who sails in and out. Lately, it's been spending more on defense and building its own gear, drones, missiles, even new air defense systems. And while it sometimes has tricky politics, it plays this unique middle role, talking with Russia, Ukraine, and the Middle East while still staying in NATO. So yeah, between its army, its location, and the tech it's building, Turkey's one of those members NATO just can't do without. When you look at NATO, France is one of the countries really pulling its weight. It pays the third most into NATO's budgets after the US and Germany, so it's not just showing up, but actually funding a big part of the alliance. French jets like the Rafale and Mirage are often flying patrols over the Baltics, and on the ground, they run NATO's mission in Romania with more than 1,500 troops, tanks, artillery, and air defense. Out at sea, their navy helps patrol tough spots like the Black Sea. One thing that makes France stand out is its nukes. It's one of only 3 NATO members with its own nuclear force, which gives the alliance extra credibility. At the same time, it's pushing defense spending hard, already over 2% of its economy and set to climb a lot higher by 2030. They're also investing massively in new gear, over 400 billion euros through 2030, while sending Ukraine advanced weapons like Caesar howitzers and Scalp missiles. That mix of money, troops, and tech is why France is seen as one of NATO's most reliable leaders. The UK has been in NATO since the start and is still one of its strongest members. It's always involved in keeping Europe safe and backing up allies. One big thing that makes Britain stand out is its nukes. It's the only European country in NATO that clearly shares them for the alliance. Submarines stay out at sea all the time, ready around the clock, which gives NATO serious protection. The military is also packed with modern gear, F-35 fighter jets, aircraft carriers, and strong cyber and space units. It even leads the Joint Expeditionary Force, a quick group of about 10,000 troops with Nordic and Baltic countries, ready to move fast if something happens. The Navy plays a big role too, especially the Carrier Strike Group with ships like HMS Prince of Wales, which joins NATO exercises and keeps the seas safe. Britain already spends more than 2% of its economy on defense and plans to raise that further. On top of that, it's buying new submarines, building missile defenses, and even selling advanced warships to Norway. The US is by far the biggest and strongest country in NATO. It helped to set up the alliance back in 1949 and has basically carried it ever since. Without America, NATO just wouldn't be the same. It pays the most into NATO's budget and also spends more on its military than all the other members combined. That money is what keeps everything running and ready. American troops are all over Europe. Germany, Poland, Romania, you name it. They train with allies, rotate in and out, and make sure the eastern border is always covered. The air power is huge too, with stealth jets, bombers, and drones always in the sky. At sea, US carriers and submarines give NATO strength no one else can match. On top of that, the US provides the nuclear shield with bombs stored in Europe to scare off anyone thinking of starting trouble. American generals also run some of NATO's top commands, and they move tanks, planes, and supplies into Europe so the alliance can fight right away if needed. Pretty much every NATO mission, whether it's war, peacekeeping, or disaster help, has the US leading the charge. The smaller NATO countries still matter a lot. They might not have huge armies, but many sit in key places, so they let NATO use their land, airspace, and bases. Some keep watch over the seas, others fly patrols in the skies, and a few focus on protecting things like ports, airports, or undersea cables. Even the tiniest members chip in money, training, or support units. It doesn't sound like much on its own, but when you put all of that together, it helps NATO cover every corner and stay strong. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed my video. You can support me by liking or subscribing, and see you next time.